Welcome to a deep dive into the Petworth real estate market. And today, specifically, we're going to be looking at your property at 5014 Illinois Avenue NW. And we've got some great information to work with here. We've got a comparative market analysis, some recent market reports, and a special marketing report that's specific to your property.
Yeah, and these aren't just dry numbers. We're going to use these documents to kind of tell a story about your specific house, how it fits into the bigger picture of the Petworth market, and then ultimately what all that could mean for you as a potential seller.
Okay, sounds good. So let's dive into this. Let's set the stage a little bit. What are the key details of this property that we're looking at?
Sure, so we're looking at a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhouse, about 2,200 square feet, built in 1925, almost a century's worth of stories to tell. The listing highlights gorgeous hardwood floors, soaring ceilings, all those charming details that buyers love in Petworth.
Right, and it looks like you purchased this property back in 2016 for $650,000. And you've made some pretty savvy upgrades since then.
You're right. The renovated kitchen with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances definitely stands out, as well as the renovated bathrooms. I think you've really strategically invested in the types of features that attract today's buyers.
Okay, so speaking of today's buyers, the market reports you've shared paint a pretty exciting picture for sellers in Petworth right now.
Absolutely. The reports show that the Petworth market in October 2024 is buzzing. They actually use the terms strong real estate activity with consistent demand.
Wow.
So we're seeing competitive offers. Properties are flying off the market. This is definitely what we call a seller's market. But to really get a grip on what this means for your property, I think we need to dig into some of the more specific data points, especially something that we call DOM, which stands for days on market.
Okay, so days on market. So that's basically how long it takes for a property to sell, right?
You got it. The average DOM for properties similar to yours in Petworth is about 66 days, which tells us that things are moving pretty quickly. But DOM is only one part of the equation. We also have to consider the price point that's generating the most buzz.
So in Petworth right now, what does that look like?
So it seems like properties priced between $800,000 and $1 billion are really catching buyers' eyes. And here's where things get really interesting. Homes that are priced aggressively, meaning maybe a tad below market value, are being practically snatched up within 2 to 3 months, closing at around 95% of their asking price.
Oh, wow. So that sounds like things are getting bid up a little bit then.
It definitely indicates a strong pool of eager buyers. But to fully understand where your property fits into all of this, I think we need to take a look at the comps, which are the comparable properties that your agent has provided.
Right. So the comps basically give us a snapshot of what similar homes are selling for, which helps us to understand what a realistic price range would be for your house.
Exactly. So these 6 comparable properties, they're all townhouses in the Petworth area.
Yeah.
And they offer a really fascinating mix of sizes, features, and price points. Some have already sold recently, which gives us some concrete data, and others are still pending, which gives us a glimpse into what buyers are currently willing to pay.
Gotcha. So I'm looking at this list here of the comps. Are there any that really stand out as maybe being particularly relevant to this property on Illinois Avenue?
Absolutely. There are a few that I'd like to analyze closely with you, as they might hold some clues about how buyers will perceive your property and what they might be willing to pay. But I'm curious, before we jump into that, what are your initial impressions so far? What's grabbing your attention about this market snapshot?
Well, honestly, what's grabbing my attention is, are those homes that are selling so quickly, especially the ones priced a bit below market value? It makes you wonder if that's something that maybe we should consider here.
It's a thought-provoking tactic for sure. And we will definitely dive into the pros and cons of that approach a bit later. But first, let's zoom in on those standout comparable properties that I mentioned.
Okay, sounds good. Let's see how those compare to my place.
All right, so let's start with 913 Emerson Street, NW. This one's a bit larger than yours. 5 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. But it sold recently for $1,185,000 after spending a mere 26 days on the market.
Wow, that's quick. So what made this property such a hot commodity?
Well, besides being slightly larger, I think this house exemplifies the high demand that we're seeing for upgraded homes in Petworth. Buyers are clearly willing to pay a premium for move-in ready features, and this property delivered on that front.
So size and upgrades seem to be key factors driving up these prices. Are we seeing that across the board with these other comps?
Well, let's take a look at 59th Street, NW. This one's actually smaller than yours, at 1,152 square feet, but it commanded a pretty hefty price per square foot of $712.
So does that mean that maybe certain features or the location can sometimes outweigh the size?
It's definitely a possibility. I think this comp suggests that buyers might be willing to compromise on space if other factors, like a prime location or highly desirable amenities, really pique their interest.
Interesting. Okay, so what about that third comp you wanted to highlight?
Right, let's talk about 5003 8th Street NW. This one's currently pending, meaning it's under contract but hasn't closed yet, listed for $999,000. And it went under contract after a mere 9 days on the market.
9 days.
Wow.
Wow, it seems like buyers are really pouncing on properties in this price range.
It certainly seems that way. And what's striking is that this property, like the one on Emerson Street, is also larger than yours. So while size isn't the only factor, it does seem to play a significant role in commanding those higher prices.
Okay, so we've got these comps, we've got this hot market data. So how do we put all this together to make smart decisions about your property?
Well, I think that's where the real analysis begins. We need to determine if that estimated value range of $805,000 to $845,000 for your home is accurate, or if we need to adjust our thinking based on these market dynamics. And of course, we need to address the big question: is right now the optimal time for you to sell?
Right, and what kind of potential return on investment could we be looking at here?
Let's crunch those numbers. Based on that estimated selling price range, and after factoring in the typical closing costs and real estate commissions, your projected net proceeds would fall somewhere between $255,975 and $292,975.
Okay, so if we take that and we subtract your original purchase price of $675.
You're looking at a potential profit of anywhere from $205,975 to $242,975.
Right.
That's a pretty impressive return for a little over 8 years of ownership.
That's pretty good. Yeah, so we know the market's hot. But is there anything else in these reports that we've been looking at that suggests that this is a particularly good time to sell?
Well, if we connect this back to those market performance reports, one of the things they highlight is that the number of scheduled appointments for similar homes in Petworth has been consistently high.
So there's lots of active buyers out there. That's great.
Exactly. And when we dig even deeper into the data, we discovered that listings priced within a range similar to yours, so between, let's say, $750,000 and $1,185,000, are moving quickly.
Especially the ones that have been on the market for less than 45 days, right?
You're picking up on the patterns. It seems like buyers in this segment are ready to make a move, and they're not hesitating to jump on properties that meet their criteria.
Okay, so high buyer interest. Properties are selling quickly. Prices are on the rise. I mean, this all seems to be pointing towards selling sooner rather than later. But is there anything that we should maybe be cautious about?
That's a great question, because even in a hot market, we need to be strategic. And one thing to consider is the competition. New listings are constantly topping up, so we can't assume that your property will be the only game in town.
Right. How does my townhouse stack up against others in its price range? What are its unique selling points? What are buyers looking for in this market?
Well, you've already touched on some of your property's strengths. You've got those upgrades, the remodeled kitchen and bathrooms, the gleaming hardwood floors, huge draws for buyers who want a move-in ready home. You've also got that classic charm of a 1925 townhouse, which brings character that you can't replicate in those cookie-cutter new builds.
Right. And of course, the location. Petworth's got that vibrant community feel, those walkable streets, tons of amenities within walking distance.
You're hitting all the key points. But there's one more layer I think we need to explore, and that's the psychology of the buyer.
Okay, what do you mean by the psychology of the buyer?
It goes beyond those tangible features.
Yeah.
Buyers are also influenced by subtle cues, emotional connections, even the way a property is presented in the listing.
Oh, so it's not just what you have, it's how you present it.
Exactly. Remember when we were looking at those property descriptions? Think about the kind of language they used and the feelings they were trying to evoke.
Yeah, I mean, some focused on luxury and high-end finishes, while others played up that sense of community and belonging. They were telling stories.
Precisely. And that story can be just as important as the square footage or the number of bedrooms. It's about connecting with potential buyers on an emotional level.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. It's really about crafting a narrative that resonates with buyers, highlighting those unique qualities that make your property special. It's not just about the facts and figures. It's about creating a feeling.
You got it. And this is where a skilled real estate agent can be invaluable. They can help you position your townhouse strategically, create that compelling story, and ensure that it stands out in a competitive market.
Yeah, it sounds like the next step is definitely to connect with my agent. and come up with a game plan. Find a way to present my property in a way that really captivates those potential buyers.
You're absolutely right. But before we move forward, there's one more critical element I think we need to tackle. Pricing.
Right, got to get the price right, especially in a market like this. You know too high, and you risk scaring off potential buyers. Too low, and you could be leaving money on the table.
You've hit the nail on the head. So the question is that estimated value range of $805,000 to $845,000 the sweet spot? Or should we consider aiming higher? Or perhaps even venturing a bit lower?
This is where things get interesting,
Yeah.
because the data seems to be suggesting we have options.
Yeah, so let's dive into these pricing options. We've talked about how aggressively priced homes are selling quickly. So what's the thinking behind that strategy?
Well, it's all about sparking excitement and a sense of urgency. By setting the initial price slightly below market value, you can pique the interest of a larger pool of buyers. Those who see it as a potential steal are more likely to make a move quickly, sometimes even leading to a bidding war.
So instead of listing at that $805,000 to $845,000 range, we could potentially list a little bit lower, hoping to ignite that competitive spirit. That's one approach to consider. And it could lead to a final sale price that exceeds that initial range. But it's not without its risks. We need to carefully analyze those comparable properties and deeply understand the motivations of buyers in this segment.
So what kind of risks are we talking about? Could we end up selling for less than we could have gotten if we had stuck with that higher range?
That's the key question. And it's why this decision requires a nuanced understanding of the market dynamics. We need to find that sweet spot, a price that's enticing enough to generate buzz, but still reflects the true value of your property.
So it's a balancing act. Got to be strategic, but also a little bit bold. It really sounds like working closely with my agent is going to be key here.
Absolutely. A seasoned agent with their finger on the pulse of the pet worth market can provide invaluable insights and guide you through this process. They can help you weigh the pros and cons of different pricing strategies and ultimately arrive at a decision that aligns with your goals.
Wow, there's a lot of factors at play here. It's not just about the house itself. It's about understanding the market. Psychology of buyers, a little bit of risk. I feel like I've learned a lot from this deep dive.
Remember, data and knowledge are powerful tools in real estate. By combining that with expert guidance, you can make informed decisions that lead to a successful sale.
So speaking of buyers, what are people looking for in pet worth these days? What are their priorities?
Well, based on our analysis, buyers in this segment seem to be drawn to that sweet spot where modern convenience meets classic charm. They're looking for those move-in ready homes with updated kitchens and bathrooms. But they also appreciate those unique architectural details and history that older homes like yours offer.
And location is always key, right? Petworth's got that great community feel, those walkable streets, and all those amenities.
And let's not forget that emotional connection. Ultimately, buyers are searching for a place they can truly call home, a place that resonates with their lifestyle and aspirations.
So it's not just about bricks and mortar. It's about tapping into those desires and creating a story that really connects with buyers on a deeper level.
Precisely. And that brings us to a final thought-provoking question for you to consider. Given all we've discussed, what factors might determine whether a potential buyer makes an offer above or below that estimated value range? What subtle details, perhaps in those property descriptions, might influence their decisions?
That's a great question. It really makes you realize that there's so much more to this than meets the eye.
Think about the nuances of language, the imagery used in those listings, and the emotional cues that can sway a buyer's perception of value.
I'll definitely be keeping all of that in mind as I move forward. This deep dive has given me not just information, but a whole new perspective on how to approach this sale strategically.
Remember, knowledge is power, especially in the world of real estate. Armed with these insights and in collaboration with your real estate agent, you're well positioned to achieve your goals. Best of luck with your sale.